This is the X10, an anomaly of a camera. So I thought it would be funny to take this, a 2/3 inch sensor camera, not even 1 inch, and put it up against this, a medium format camera that I borrowed. How much of a difference can we tell? It's going to be huge. This is Fuji's latest, or close to latest, and this is certainly not late at all. These two cameras are hilarious. This guy has a prime, as does the X100s. Our little friend here has a zoom lens, a 28 to 112 equivalent focal length, which gives you quite a bit of extra range to play with. Other than resolution, these cameras show a lot more in common than I would have expected. This camera has a 12 megapixel sensor, but because of the EXR, it goes down to 6. So, does resolution really even matter? This camera also can only shoot JPEG in EXR mode. Now that we've done a bit of a walk with this camera, and by the way, that's the best thing for this camera, I think, is to hang it around your neck, walk around the forest or on a hike, and just use it when you see a shot. I think it's time to take it home, do a bit of a comparison, because there's other cameras that I think might do everything this does, even better. The other thing about this camera that I didn't really expect is how good the RAW files are. They are crazy good, especially in comparison to the raw performance of the X100. This guy gives files you can bring back pretty dang far. This camera has remarkable image quality for what it is, especially considering the small sensor. At the time, however, the sensor was considered significantly larger than other compacts of the same size. The advantage of having a smaller sensor allowed for more zoom range. Versus the X100's 35mm full frame equivalent, this had 28 to 112 at f2 to 2.8, a vast improvement. Though keep in mind you're losing out on some background blur because that 2 to 2.8 is after cropping into this tiny sensor. The other aspect that I love about this camera is the mechanical link on the zoom. See, some cameras have it so that it's a tiny switch that you have to fiddle back and forth to zoom in. Here, it's a physical, mechanical ring that you're twisting. This is also how you turn on the camera, and I think this design is super ingenious, just because it's so simple. Speaking of mechanics, the body is absolutely beautiful in how it's built. It feels like a professional camera, and I would argue the design, which is probably why you clicked this video, is iconic and timeless, but is it worth the price tag? See, because of this design, this camera goes for $460. It goes for $500, I've even seen, USD. It is a very, very expensive price to pay for a camera that, while beautifully built, doesn't do a crazy amount. See, I have two alternatives for you. The first is an X100. With a crop sensor, it does hold its own a little bit nicer, and sometimes you can find it in a similar price range if you look around. The next one is if you don't mind a little bit of different design. It still has an X100, it's just followed by an R. The RX100 by Sony, with a design that is super, super simple, I think this camera is really good. With a 1-inch sensor, that being 4 times as big as the X10, and a similar zoom range, it really does knock it out of the park for the photos that it can get. It's also significantly smaller, I would argue pocketable even. And because of its design, it has a bit more utilitarian modern design, people aren't drawn to it like the Fujis. That's not to say the X10 is a bad camera. It's not. It just gets me wondering, how much am I willing to spend for a beautiful looking camera? Thank you for watching, and God bless.